Okay, mine's Island time. I would like you to give a big warm welcome to my cousin and a Mine's Island time artist, Tommy Angelo. Welcome, Tommy.
Thanks, Mo.
How's
Great
it going?
To be with you.
Yeah, we wish you could be here in person, but we totally understand that's not possible in these times always. So we thank you for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to, I don't even know if anybody has any idea of who we are or anything, but it's just wonderful that we get to work together on this wonderful project, given that we've known each other since you were born.
So true. And it's really cool. You've always been an inspiration and a source of information, and it's been really cool. And now to see both of our worlds aligning in this sense and to be able to do this sort of thing is really cool.
It's great.
Yeah. So just to kind of get started, I think maybe just kind of give us a general intro. Tommy, is a poker coach and writer, and I just would like to maybe kind of get a quick history of how all that came to be.
Well, there are basically four things I've dedicated my whole life to: music, writing, poker, and then as of 20 years or so ago, meditation, which is what we're here to talk about.
Awesome.
Right? So basically everything that I've ever done as a hobby has turned into a career for me. I was a full-time musician all through my 20s, then became a full-time poker player at age 30, played all day, all night for pretty much 20 years, made my living playing poker. And then when I moved to California and started writing for poker magazines, and that went really well because I always wanted to be a writer, so I worked really hard on my writing. Then I started writing books, and I've written 5 books in the last 15 years or so. And the most recent one is a book called Dailiness. The subtitle is How to Sustain a Meditation Practice. So what happened was I went through all kinds of pain and agony through poker and various addictions and all kinds of just being kind of a degenerate and unglued most of the time. And then when I discovered meditation in 2003, I was so ripe for it that I just knew it was the greatest thing for me, and I haven't missed a day since my first day. I was so started out doing yoga, and then I started doing sitting meditation in 2003, and I was just reading Thich Nhat Hanh and John Kabat-Zinn. And so what happened was that made my poker game so good, so fast, that's when I was able to start a coaching business. And that's also when there was an explosion of poker in around 2004, 2005. So I was already considered one of the, old timers or medium timers at that time. So then I started coaching and writing books about poker. But it's all been fueled by the disciplines and the wisdom I've learned through my meditation practice and those experiences.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And I love, and we're going to get a little bit more into it. You touched on the new book and everything, and we'll talk a little bit more. But that's one of the hardest parts is maintaining that and not missing a day. So that's really cool that we're going to get some extra advice, on that and all that sort of stuff. So you tell us a little bit about the specific program that you developed, and Tiltless is called.
Okay, good. So what I brought to the poker world that hadn't been done before was emphasis on the mental game. Okay, up until I wrote Elements of Poker and I started coaching in 2004, any poker books you bought were about strategy, how to bet. These are your cards you should raise. This is why.
Right.
And they were all very analytical and written by very analytical people. And so, because I struggled so much with the mental side, what we call tilt in poker means you kind of come unglued and you're playing based on emotion, usually negative emotions. And I expanded the meaning of tilt to mean any sort of non-A game performance. So if you're tired or you're frustrated or you're bored, all of these things can lead to where you're not playing your best game, right? Wow. And that was what the emphasis of my writing and teaching was about, and my coaching. And so earlier on, I was coaching world-class players, guys making gazillions of dollars, I wasn't coaching them on strategy. I was coaching them on how to maintain a steady, even focus and a good mindset for poker. So I called it the Tiltless Program. That was the name of my coaching program, because the whole idea was to, well, I come up with a lot of little sayings, but one of them is, no one is tiltless, which means everyone can tilt less. And that's kind of the idea. It's like this, or any kind of spiritual practice, really, it isn't like you're trying to like, you know, fly to the top of the mountain. You're just moving up incrementally.
Totally.
Each hour, each day, or whatever, right? A little bit at a time. And so that's the approach I've taken to coaching the mental problems that poker players have, because it's a very, very difficult arena mentally.
Yeah. Wow. And so, I mean, it's really cool that the sitting practice must tie in very much to sitting at the table, and then you know, it's
you do a lot of sitting. I know. I realized that right at the beginning when they said, like, oh yeah, the best practice of all time is called sitting meditation. I'm like, well, shit, I'm sitting 45 hours a week at a poker table. This could work.
So
yeah. And I do meditate at the table. I'm right now, you can see if I'm sitting very straight, just as if I were sitting on my meditation bench. But that's over years of training.
Sure.
The motive at the beginning was not just to reduce my own unhappiness, but to make more money.
Right.
Right. Because I was leaking money at the table by these negative mindsets. You know, I knew if I could because I had the skills. You know?
Right.
But yeah, it's funny you should mention the sitting, because when I'm talking to clients about, and one of the reasons I'm able to write knowledgeably about meditation is I've coached a lot of poker players over the years, and a lot of them I've coached at the beginning stages of meditation, just their early seeds of interest. This was like 15 years ago, before it even became more popular. And so I'm really familiar with the obstacles that people run into, and also one of the things I try to do with poker and meditation is just boil things down to the simplest nuggets that are the most widely applicable, you know, to the most people. Because everybody's going to have their own path. They're all going to have their own influences, right? But there are certain aspects of a daily practice that are kind of common to all. You know, so I'm always looking for those commonalities.
Yeah, and you've done other cool things in the past too, like the eightfold path to poker enlightenment and stuff, and like you've always kept that. I love it. It's fantastic.
That was kind of a key point. That was 2008. So in 2006, I wrote a little bit about meditation, but I was kind of nervous about it, you know, because getting mocked or whatever, right? But I was like, man, this is just so important. I got to put it out there. And so then when I decided to go all out, I made a series of videos for a website, a coaching site called The Eightfold Path to Poker Enlightenment. And so what I did was I just took the Buddha's Eightfold Path, you know, right thinking, right view, and all these, and did one episode on each of those. I had to change a few of them to make it more poker-centric.
Sure.
But the idea was the you know, all the messages of Buddhism and other spiritual trainings were in there for sure. Weaved in with the poker.
So cool. I love it. And I heard you mention him earlier, and there's like a couple specific moments in our history that stick out. You sending me the Jon Kabat-Zinn book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, and also the meditation bench, the sitting bench.
Oh,
you know? Talk about like those things and maybe like how instrumental that it was in developing that practice further.
Yeah. Well, that was my mode of entry to the whole thing. Was my buddy Alex had this book called Full Catastrophe Living, which was Jon Kabat-Zinn's first book. And he's like, wow, this is blowing my mind. And I started reading it, and you know, he tells you how to meditate super easy, like on your back, you know, on the floor.
Sure.
So I had kind of a come to Jesus moment or whatever. I reached a point in my life where I was like way abusive with alcohol and other things, and I came to a point where I just had to turn it around. So when I quit drinking, on that day I decided to start meditating every day. I had already heard about it, right? So that all kind of went together.
Sure.
And so, but that led me to Thich Nhat Hanh. I learned about Thich Nhat Hanh in Jon Kabat-Zinn's books, Also, wherever you go, there you are,
Sure.
which is just a short book, with these like 2-page chapters. It's so accessible. And so once I got a hold of Thich Nhat Hanh, I felt like, wow, I really had access to all the information and inspiration I needed for now. And that's kind of when it took off.
Amazing. Well, I got a fun question. If you, if you, in a short kind of way, how can you describe the space that you're in when you're in an optimal space at the poker table? You know what I mean? Like, do you have a way to describe what that's like?
Yeah, a lot of ways of describing it, but you've heard it described many times in other areas, like say a kung fu warrior, a martial arts warrior.
Sure.
Okay, that state of readiness.
Right.
It's a physical and mental state of readiness, and you're ready to react without thinking. Right? So you do all the thinking and strategizing away from the table, just like you would if you're a trained boxer or whatever, but while you're actually boxing, it's all flow. That's the ultimate state for poker, where you have so much experience and so much understanding that there's not even any room for negative mental stuff to come in.
Wow.
Okay? So now, the ultimate is when you can sit there and you wait because there's a lot of patience, and you wait for a good hand, you get your pocket jacks, and the jack comes on the flop, and a big pot happens, and you lose. Right? So that's the test. That's the test right there. Now, with pro football players or whatever, yeah, they can throw an interception, and you think, oh, now they're going to be flustered. But not really, because when they're ready for the next play, at that moment, they're not really thinking about that interception.
Sure.
At that moment. They're involved. But at poker, it's different because you're sitting there with nobody else. There's no physical activity. It's just you and your head.
Right.
You can go into a dark place based on your bad luck or whatever.
Sure.
That is, you can't retrieve it from it. Okay. So now what I'm describing is the opposite of the best state.
Right.
Now you've heard the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Right? On the other end is this state of melancholy and self-pity. That's just gross, right? But But I've been in that state so much. That's why I was so highly, highly motivated to figure out how the hell never to go there again, because it's bad.
Awesome. And a lot of that stuff is you address a lot in Painless Poker too. Then, like how to deal with that specific stuff.
Yeah.
And you do it in a cool way with characters and everything. Can you talk about, briefly how that worked?
So I wrote Elements of Poker, which was not a fiction book. It's an education book. I mean, I like to put a lot of life into my writing, but it's basically a book that's intended to help you play better poker, ultimately, right? Painless Poker also has that motive, but the concept is I wanted to do it in a fiction setting, okay? So the story is it's me, a fictional version of me, giving a 2-day clinic to 7 poker players, all right? And the premise is that each of them were beamed in magically at their moment of greatest pain, at their moment of greatest poker pain. While it was going on, they were just all of a sudden transported, and all of a sudden they find themselves sitting around a table with me and six other strangers.
Right.
So over the course of 2 days, we hear each of their story, what was going on in their life that was so terrible, right?
Right.
And then the place, this fictional place is called the Painless Poker Clinic. It's me giving this seminar on how to make poker and your whole life less painful.
Wow.
Okay. So because it was in this fictional setting, it really gave me the leeway to say a lot of things in ways, just like a lot of fiction writers enjoy, that you wouldn't be able to say if it was just me talking.
Right.
Because I had all these other voices who weren't me, who needed to talk from their place of pain. Right?
Amazing.
And, it came out, and also as a writer, it was a huge undertaking because I basically needed to learn how to write fiction for real for the first time. So that was a 7-year writing project.
Wow.
And a lot of that was because I had a lot of learning to do along the way and did some restarts.
Wow. So let's dive in a little bit to sitting practice a little bit more.
Sure.
and any pointers that you have for that, or how that developed out of your initial meditation and yoga and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to what you mentioned, the bench. Okay, so my version of sitting 101 is that there are two things that you put your mind on, you intend to put your mind on. Meditation is the intention to concentrate. This is one of the things, people write to me, oh, my mind's too busy. I tried to do it, and I just had thoughts all over the place. I was like, yeah, but you did attempt at least once to follow at least one breath, right?
Right.
And they're right. I said, well, that counts. That's full score, right? If you take the time to sit still and intend to concentrate. So the two things are your breathing and posture. Anybody who's read Zen Mind's Beginner's Mind, Suzuki is the one who has always put a lot of the Asian monk teachers from the 60s and 70s, put a lot of emphasis on posture. But the beautiful thing about posture is ultimately what you have your sitting practice in the morning, but what you want to cultivate is many moments of mindfulness throughout the day. So you can think of the sitting practice as training, so that you have the wherewithal later in the day to consciously say, okay, I'm going to now focus on something in the present on purpose. Right. Well, the thing to focus on all the time, because it's always there, is your body. There's two ways to focus on your body. One is the breathing in and out, and then any form of focus on your posture. So you can be standing, waiting for something, you're impatient, and just the act of deciding to stand up straight is pure mindfulness, pure relief, pure training, pure everything, right? So you can't underemphasize the posture. So most people in our culture are not able to sit cross-legged with a perfectly straight spine posture that's relaxed and comfortable, that you can do it for 30 minutes.
Right.
Okay, it's rare. You have to kind of be raised in a culture where you're sitting cross-legged all through your childhood.
Right.
So there are two sitting postures that are sanctioned by the authorities, and they're both great. One is the meditation bench with the little angled bench, which is difficult for some people on their knees and this and that. But the thing that's great about it is it guarantees that the arrangement of your hips and the first vertebrae of your spine are like you want it, locked in straight, okay? And the other one is chair sitting. I happen to have a cat on my lap. But basically the way chair sitting is, you take a chair, like a regular old straight boring chair, and sit on the very, very, very edge, the closest to the edge you can get, so that you're sitting right on your sit bones, and it's almost impossible to sit any way but straight.
Wow.
Once you get that straight posture, life is good.
Yeah.
The concept that you use your body as the go-to item to concentrate on when you decide to become mindful. And then there's the breathing. And the basic thing about breathing, and this goes down to simplifying it a little bit, because there's so many techniques, and I've done many of them at length. But the basic idea is being aware of whether you're breathing in or out. That's it. That's the basic practice. So one way you could, like if you were going to have like a mindfulness scorecard, okay, let's say you could go back and look over all of your breaths of the previous day, whatever, how many, 5,000 breaths. Your scorecard would be on how many of those in breaths and out breaths was I aware at that time that I was breathing in or out.
Wow. Right.
And so once I figured that out, my objective became to just raise the ratio of mindful breaths in my life, period. Any way I could come up with.
Awesome. Wow.
So the sitting practice in the morning is awareness of in and out and awareness of posture. Bring your spine up.
Perfect. Wow.
That's it.
Explain the sit bones real quick. You mentioned it, but some might not know or whatever, but explain that.
All you got to do is go Google a picture of the hip bone, which is one big old bone, and the sit bones are actually part of that bone. They're connected. It's all the same thing. And basically it's two little knobs. They're only about this far apart and about this big. And if you reach down there, you can definitely feel it. Two little, with your hand, with your fingers. Two little knobs right there. About that far apart. Which means that if you're out in the wild or whatever and you need a place to meditate, You only need a stump that's this wide. If you're trained at this, you can sit on a tree stump that's this wide comfortably, because once you've got those two pieces of your bone on there, everything else can rest on that, all of your weight.
Wow.
So that's what your sit bones are. It's basically two little knobs coming out of your hip bone.
Amazing. Cool. And let's dive into the dailiness too.
Sure.
You know, because I think that is a great explanation of sitting practice and how it can be beneficial. Excellent.
Okay, so I learned about dailiness very much the I guess the hard way, by starting and stopping various projects and things I wanted to do, and or even, let's say somebody goes to the gym 3 times a week, right? And they do it for a few months, and then they stop for whatever reason. It's just hard to get it going again.
Right.
Right. And then you're upset with yourself in the meantime.
Sure.
Okay. So what I learned from having quitting smoking cigarettes 30 times and quitting other things, they say don't have that first cigarette, right? Or don't have that first drink if it's something you don't want to do ever again, right? Well, the way the math works is, if you never have one cigarette, it's impossible to have 10,000. You just can't get there, right? It doesn't mean if you have one, you're going to automatically start smoking again, but you might. Okay, so I look at the meditation practices like the other way around, or anything that you want to do every day. Okay, wow. If you never skip a day, you can never skip a month. That's the whole. That's one of the reasons to maintain a daily practice. There's multiple, but it isn't just the benefit. The whole idea is that if you're somebody who's done enough meditating that you know it's really good for you, and you want more meditation in your life, the huge transformational benefits come from doing it every day, nonstop, for years, right? But then there's huge drawback if you do it for a while and then you stop, and then you wish you were doing it. I've coached so many people through this cycle, right? So what I came up with was this idea of, this analogy of a campfire. Okay, let's say you're starting a campfire from scratch in the old days, and you had to get moss and twigs and get down there and windbreak, and you get this thing going, smoking, and put twigs on, and eventually you get a fire going. Well, then if you go to bed at night and you put some logs on the fire, then when you get up in the morning, it's down to a coal bed, but the coals are red, and all you got to do to start the fire is put anything on there. But if it goes all the way out to nothing, you got to start all over. That's how it is when you start and stop one of these self-improvement things, right?
Sure.
So if somebody's got a meditation practice and they want to do 20 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, great. But what I'm saying is 1 minute a day counts on the scorecard.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have a day and you just can't do it, you're drunk, you're depressed, you're hungover, you're on the road, these are all the classic things that make us stop. Mm-hmm. Just do any amount to keep the coal bed alive. You keep that coal bed alive by doing something every single day, no matter what. Wow. Okay? And then there will be times when you're feeling better and everything's better, but you'll never have a lapse. That's the whole thing. It's like the objective, I believe, for somebody who already knows and is convinced that meditation is awesome, is to never have a lapse. So that's why one of the things I go into in this book, there's basic instructions in there, but like for example, travel, okay? So what happened when I started doing my daily practice is I did anticipate these things. I'm a good strategizer, right? And I was like, wow, when I go to Ohio to go to our family reunion, this was heavy on my mind. How am I going to maintain my practice? Where am I going to do it, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to Las Vegas to play poker for 2 weeks, or let's say it's something comes up suddenly, I need to go, friends in the hospital, and I need to go hang out at a hospital for 2 days or something, right? Sure. You never know. Right. You have to plan in advance. And the analogy I use in the book is like an Olympic athlete. If you were training for the Olympics and you had to go off on a sudden road trip, you wouldn't just do no exercise.
Right.
You'd be looking for staircases or anywhere to jog up and down.
Totally.
Right? That's sort of like the hungry, full of zeal attitude that one if somebody can feel that way about their practice, they'll be like dedicated. I'm going on the road. I'm not going to miss a day.
Amazing.
I got the flu. I feel sick. I'm not going to miss a day. You know, I'm depressed. I can't move. This is the hardest, the hardest. And I have that in the book too. But the idea is that you plan in advance, you know, just hold the line.
Wow. So cool. When, how long ago did Dailiness come out?
2018, 3 years.
Wow. So cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, man, this is great. And getting to do this with you is fantastic. What do you got coming up? What are you working on? You got anything you can tell us about, or?
Well, in my career as a poker writer, teacher person, I'm now making videos making YouTube videos. I've learned how to make movies like you.
Awesome.
And so my channel is called Tommy Angelo, and the series is called Poker Words. So that's what I'm doing on the creative front.
Cool.
And that's, you know, pretty much it.
Awesome.
Simplified things over here.
Yeah.
I did want to mention one other little point from Dailiness.
Sure.
Okay, that I look at this book and Elements of Poker is like there's already tons of stuff out there on meditation. So I was looking for like what is some of the stuff that could be very useful that isn't necessarily touted or written about much. Okay,
Sure.
So there are plenty of teachers of books that say, yeah, do it daily, you know, for example, but they don't go specifically what are the obstacles, right? Well, another thing is like when to do it, what time of day. Okay, I'm a huge believer in doing it during your first hour or two of being awake, before you engage the world. Okay, and I do make some pretty strong cases for that in Dailiness. But one of them is, if the objective is to never miss a day, and you plan to do it every day at noon or every day in the evening, there's bound to be days come up where it just physically can't be done for whatever reason.
Right.
Maybe you get in a car wreck. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Sure.
Right? There are other reasons to do it, and another reason to do it in the morning is if you think of it as a tune-up, and if you think of your mind and body as your musical instrument, and your meditation practice is your tune-up, well, and each day is a concert, well, when do you want to tune up? At the beginning of the concert or the end of the concert? Right?
Yeah.
So you do it in the morning, and it makes you and your whole self better, and then you carry that forward into your interactions with others.
Amazing.
So
yeah, I love
it.
It reminds me of a tweet that you recently had that said, your best chance of plugging in, being unplugged is before you plug in, or something like that.
Oh, yeah,
how did that work?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great.
It's really hard to unplug in the middle of the day.
Right.
But if you, here's the other thing. When people say, oh, I don't have time in the morning. Okay. Well, they do. So basically, you need to get up an hour earlier.
Right.
Or half an hour earlier and go to bed earlier.
Sure.
And if somebody says, well, I can't do that, or if they say, I can't concentrate on my breathing, I'm like, if I paid you $1,000 a day to go to bed an hour earlier, do you think you could? It's like, or, $100
Sure.
per mindful breath. Obviously, it's only a matter of priority.
Right.
Right. It's just a matter of priority. So but here's the reason to carve out that extra time in the morning is nobody expects you to be in contact with them then. Nobody's going to be texting you.
Perfect.
See, this is the freedom of intentionally doing it before anybody knows you're even awake.
Wow.
Right?
That's
then you
great.
truly have created like your own little tree fort of time and space that is truly yours. You're not going to be disturbed.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. Wow. Awesome, Tommy. Man, well, this is great. It's starting to get dark around here, so I'm sitting outside and trying to do this. But tell us about where everyone can check you out and find all your stuff and that kind of stuff.
Okay. First of all, I love your backdrop. It's tempting to just like stop and breathe along.
Yeah, that's excellent. This is a digital animation that was actually released as a neurofeedback training package. So the owner of this bought it. It comes with a EEG headset, and they can actually control this animation based on brainwave activity.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's so neat.
Hypnotic.
Yeah.
Very cool. Did you design the actual design of it?
In computers, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You made these decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. So basically, anything you want to know about me is at my website, TommyAngelo.com.
Cool.
All my books are there, my coaching and videos and articles and just fun stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, that's definitely the place to go. And Tommy, thank you so much. This is really cool. There's a lot of information jammed in there. That was great.
Yep. Well,
cool.
Good luck with the festival, Mo. I'm really, really excited for you. And we will definitely come down when we can.
All right. Next time, whenever you can, it will be here.
Okay.
Thanks, Tommy.
All right, man.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.